Welcome to the Shreveport Connection with Tommy. This video is on your Monday Night Raw, Superstars, and some other wrestling news. And just want to let you know what merchandise that I did get at the SmackDown taping live in Bossier City. Get the newest Ryback shirt. Ryback. Get it centerized so you all can see it. And of course, on the back, feed me more. Hey, that's the shirt that I got. And I wore it with pride at the SmackDown tapings in Bossier City, Louisiana. And now for your wrestling news. My condolences go to the Buddy Roberts family as he passed away at the age of 65 yesterday. Former WCW wrestler, NWA, WCCW, that's World Class Championship Wrestling fame with the Freebirds. One of the only original Freebird left is Michael P.S. Hayes. And the other Freebird that is living, but he was not an original, was Jimmy Jam Garvin, who was still married to his valet for many years. Other news, the official WWE website has posted highlights of this week's episode of WWE Superstars featuring Santino Marella versus David Otunga and Brodus Clay versus JTG. On Monday, they taped this week's episode from Lafayette, Louisiana. And here are the results from that. Santino Marella defeated David Otunga. Surprise. And Brodus Clay defeated JTG. WWEshop.com has released new Ryback merchandise as of Tuesday. Feed Me More pendant and a Feed Me More hat. Brodus Clay's dancer, Naomi, turned 25 years old on today. Also celebrating birthdays are former WWE superstars Tom Zink, the Z-Man, he turned 54, and Jimmy Del Rey of the Heavenly Bodies turned 50. As reported yesterday, on Thursday, Thomas Latimer, who appeared as Kenneth Cameron for WWE's Developmental League, NXT, was arrested late Thanksgiving Eve in St. Petersburg, Florida, on charges of battery on a law enforcement officer and disorderly intoxication. He was taken into custody at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office and released on $5,100 bail, with the battery charge costing $5,000 itself and a disorderly intoxication charge costing $100. According to BW Insider, he was released from his contract immediately following the arrest. On Monday's Pro Wrestling History Day, November 25th, the WWF superstar, the Ultimate Warrior, was officially gone from the WWF and ended his relevancy to pro wrestling. The Warrior was supposed to take part in a tag match at Survivor Series 1992 on November 25th, 1992. The match was supposed to be Ultimate Warrior, Randy Macho Man Savage versus Razor Ramon Ric Flair, but ended up being Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, and Randy Savage versus Razor Ramon Ric Flair instead. What happened? And why didn't the Warrior show up in a major promotion after 1992, other than very brief stints in WWF in 1996 and WCW in 1998? First of all, who was the Ultimate Warrior? Was it a one-time WWF champion? He was a one-time WWF champion and had a rare clean win victory against Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6. He was supposed to be the next big babyface in the business, and Hogan handed him the torch at WrestleMania 6. In years prior, the Warrior had a huge mid-card success and is arguably the most successful Intercontinental Champion of all time, with his dominance leading from 1988 to 1990. He was actually Intercontinental Champion heading into WrestleMania 6 against Hogan. And WWF thought that the Ultimate Warrior would continue the WWF's dominance and success in leading the 1990s. In hindsight, it was meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. More than 2 years later, after winning the title, and going into 1990, the Warrior was gone from WWE. Jim Hellwig, the man behind the Ultimate Warrior gimmick, would begin his pro wrestling career around 1985 with Vince McMahon's influence of chiseled wrestlers running wild in the industry. Bodybuilders like Hellwig were getting pulled into pro wrestling. After changing wrestler names and gimmicks for a few times, Hellwig would eventually wrestle under the name of Rock and tag up with a guy named Steve Borton, who wrestled under the name of Flash. So you got the Rock and Flash, and they were they would join the World Class Championship Wrestling promotion, and he would join as a Dingo Warrior with face paint. And World Class Championship Wrestling, that's WCCW. And while his former partner, Steve Borton, or Flash, would eventually go on to the Jim Crockett NWA promotion, that would become World Championship Wrestling, WCW, with face paint, and called himself Sting. How about that? Two of the most popular and successful single wrestlers with face paint once tagged together. Yeah, that was AEWA at one time as well. Dingo Warrior wouldn't last long in world class, and soon joined the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, in 1987, initially as the Dingo Warrior. He was soon repackaged as the Ultimate Warrior and quickly became a popular mid-card act. His theme music created an explosive entrance that amped up the crowd, and he was very popular among children who seemed drawn to wrestlers with face paint. Road Warrior, Sting, Demolition, for example, who was becoming the perfect mid-card act and helped complement Hulkamania at the top of the card. Now then came SummerSlam 1988, where the year-long Intercontinental Champion Honky Tonk Man thought he had an easy night. Then the music hit. Ultimate Warrior destroyed the Honky Tonk Man within moments to win his first Intercontinental Championship. The fans went bonkers, and suddenly WWF had a strong babyface crowd in the mid-card. As time wore on through 1989 and through 1990, WWF drew lots of money with Hogan, drawing as the WWF champion and Warrior as the Intercontinental champion. Can't forget Demolition as tag champs, too. Fans either wore red and yellow or they painted their faces up. And it was okay for fans to actively root for both wrestlers. Merchandising was at all-time high, and WWF could draw crazy money by splitting the WWF rosters with Hogan at the top of one tour and Warrior at the top of the other. Money was pouring in by keeping them separate and letting fans root for both guys. But then, by 1990, the WWF forced fans to choose with the Ultimate Challenge. WrestleMania 6 featured Hogan versus Warrior, WWE champion versus Intercontinental champion, and babyface versus babyface. WWF banked on the fact that the wrestling fans wanted to see this match, which they did. WrestleMania 6 was very successful, and that the Ultimate Warrior could transition easily from mid-card act to the top guy carrying the promotion. Little did WWF know that Hogan still had some tread on his tires, and that Warrior wasn't the main event draw that he was intended to become. I'd possibly argue that after WrestleMania 6, he wasn't quite treated as the champion as he was rehashed his feud with Ravishing Rick Rude from the previous year. Rude was never meant to be a serious main eventer, at least in the WWF's eyes. Ditto for Ted DiBiase for a feud. That's $1 Million Man's opportunity to become champion for pass from WrestleMania 4. 2 years prior, quite possibly the WWF missed the boat by not having Warrior feud with the Macho King, Randy Savage, immediately, who was the perfect heel complement to the Warrior, as the WWF found out by their spectacular feud and match at WrestleMania 7. At Royal Rumble 1991, Warrior lost to Sergeant Slaughter, heel at the time, Iraqi sympathizer with Desert Storm going on, thanks to Macho Man's interference. This set up the retirement match between the Warrior and Randy Savage, which many consider the Warrior's finest match. Why was he looking at his hand? After beating Savage at WrestleMania 7, the Ultimate Warrior was set to tag with Hulk Hogan to take on Team Iraq, Sergeant Slaughter, with Colonel Mustafa and General Adnan at SummerSlam 1991. Issues over money between WWF and Ultimate Warrior led to SummerSlam 91 being the last WWF appearance. WWF had claimed that Warrior held Vince up before the show for the money, whereas Warrior has claimed that the promised payments such as WrestleMania 7 or merchandising deals weren't made to him after SummerSlam 91. Fans wouldn't see the Warrior until WWF brought him back for WrestleMania 8 in 1992. Warrior's return to WWF in 1992 didn't go so well. For one, Warrior appeared thinner than before and had a new haircut. This led to the multiple rumors that the Warrior died from substance abuse and was replaced with another wrestler. His bizarre feud with Papa Shango perplexed WWF fans at the time, especially when strange fluids would flow or be vomited out of the Warrior while being under Shango's spell. I remember in particular when black goo came out of Warrior's forehead. The odd storylines and a thinner, different look seemed to harm the Warrior's image in the 1992 return. Not so stellar matches with Papa Shango didn't help either. He had a rematch against Randy Savage at SummerSlam 92 in England, but the rematch didn't set the world on fire like the WrestleMania 7 match and was overshadowed by the hot Bret Hart versus British Bulldog Intercontinental title match. This time around for Savage versus Warrior, it was babyface versus babyface. The wrestlers were then naturally paired up for Survivor Series 1992 and take on the heel tag team of Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. For those that don't know Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. This tag match was a result of Ric Flair recapturing the WWE title shortly after SummerSlam in 1992, thanks to some assistance by Razor Ramon to help Flair win. Macho and Warrior named themselves the Ultimate Maniacs and had one of the most classic promos ever. But the match at Survivor Series 92 was not Ultimate Warrior Randy Savage versus Razor Ramon Ric Flair in a matter of weeks before the pay-per-view. Ultimate Warrior was released by WWF. During 1992, the WWF and Vince McMahon were under pressure from a possible legal threat for steroid distribution in the WWF. Reportedly, the Ultimate Warrior and also Davey Boy Smith were released by the WWF for failing the WWF's drug testing of the time. Warrior had repeatedly denied that he failed the test, as it should be noted, but the main point is that the release removed Warrior from the Survivor Series in 1982. The WWF turned Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig against his pal Ric Flair, and the match was rebooked to Kurt Hennig, Randy Savage versus Ric Flair, Razor Ramon. So, on this day in pro wrestling history, Survivor Series 1992 went on without the Ultimate Warrior on November 25th, 1992. Worse yet, the Warrior's contribution to pro wrestling were practically over despite his younger age of 33 at the time, and an age of which is typically part of the peak years for a pro wrestler. Bret Hart has stated that the Warrior was scheduled to wrestle Hart at Royal Rumble 93 for the WWE title, WWF title back then. The Ultimate Warrior would disappear for the next 3 years instead of possibly following fellow disgruntled released wrestler Davey Boy Smith to WCW. The pro wrestling industry changed considerably in those 3 years. By the time Ultimate Warrior returned to WWF in 96, Monday Night Wars were heating up. In the need of some star power, the WWF buried the hatchet with Jim Hellwig in preparation for WrestleMania 12. There he would destroy Triple H in a nostalgic return. But the Warrior's return momentum would end at WrestleMania 12. He would last a few pay-per-views, but ultimately fizzle out with WWE management again. WWF cited absence issues. Warrior alleged missed payments by WWF for services and merchandise. He would disappear out of the mainstream until returning to television. televised wrestling by joining WCW in 1998, now called the Warrior, as Jim Hellwig legally changed his name to Warrior to avoid the WWF's ownership of the Ultimate Warrior name or gimmick. He would arrive in WCW to immediately confront and challenge Hollywood Hulk Hogan for a match at WCW's Halloween Havoc. The promos were bizarre, the disappearing act with the smoke, and the trap door was strange. And the match at Halloween Havoc with Hogan owning blame for it too, was a disaster. Warrior was soon out of WCW. The Warrior has been essentially retired since then, though he did some work for former WWE wrestler Orlando Jordan in 2008. For much of the 2000s in recent years, the Warrior was more known for his mouth. Trying his hand at politics, he began a motivational speaking tour, which made famous by his University of Connecticut appearance in 2005, where he made a few controversial statements. The famous queering doesn't make the world work. He's been very outspoken about the business, and several fellow wrestlers, Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash, recently, however, he's been pretty quiet, making me wonder if he's made nice with the WWE to possibly to be inducted into the Hall of Fame soon. Sadly, the Warrior has not been the same to the pro wrestling world since his 1992 release from the WWF, or quite possibly his first exit after SummerSlam 91. Maybe he should have joined WCW for 1993. Maybe he should have worked through his issues in 96 with the WWF. Maybe he should have joined WCW earlier rather than when he did in 1998. Could you imagine the Warrior coming out in black and white face paint, joining either the New World Order or his former tag partner Sting in his fight against the NWO sometime in 1997? Instead, the Warrior joined WCW on the downswing, and the Halloween Havoc 98 match was destined to fail. Hopefully the WWE and the Warrior can do business again. There are many Warrior fans still out there in their 40s, including yours truly, who enjoyed the Warrior's WWF run and felt that his career was successful enough to merit Hall of Fame consideration. Recommended Ultimate Warrior matches: Ultimate Warrior smashing Honky Tonk Man at SummerSlam 92. Ultimate Warrior 1989 versus Ravishing Rick Rude matches. 1990 as well are good too. Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6. Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Macho Man Savage at WrestleMania 7. And finally, Warrior Sting versus Hogan Brett from WCW Nitro on October 12th, 1998. Blows my mind that this match even happened. Anybody else think what matches that you would say that was pretty good? Let me know on the comments. Well, on with the show. Raw opened up with a look at the AJ Lee and John Cena scandal with footage of the kissing from last week and the locker room incident. Then we see Cena retaliating on Dolph Ziggler at SmackDown. The video shifts focus to CM Punk, Ryback, and the NXT 3 members of Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns, if you don't remember, that is The Rock's cousin, which are now called The Shield. Isn't that copyright infringement? Comic book? Avengers type thing? The Shield? We're live from the Cajun Dome in Lafayette, Louisiana, and again, they were not allowed to say Lafayette on television. Well, apparently John Cena did not get the memo. Well, Ryback made his way out. Michael Coleslaw welcomes us as well as Jerry the King Lawler, who recently had a birthday. Happy birthday, Jerry the King Lawler. I think it was yesterday, if not today. Ryback versus Titus O'Neil was the first up. Titus waits in the ring as Ryback makes his way out. Titus takes Ryback to the corner early on and works him over. Ryback turns it around and but Ryback turns it around, but Titus drops him in a corner and then hits a shoulder tackle. Titus took back Ryback down again with a big clothesline. We see Darren Young at ringside. Ryback comes back and unloads. They end up on the floor, and Ryback levels Titus. Ryback brings it back in the ring, but Titus catches him with a big sit-down powerbomb for a 1 count. Titus goes for it again, but Ryback catches him and tosses him into Darren Young on the apron. Ryback slams Titus and hits the meat hook clothesline. Ryback nails a shell shock for the win. After the match, Ryback takes the mic and addresses CM Punk and NXT 3 members. He says he's going to stand here all damn night until he gets what he wants. Ryback gets a Feed Me More chant from the crowd going as they cut into commercial. Well, when the show comes back from the break and Ryback is still in the ring, security makes their way out to the ring. One guy steps up to Ryback and gets tossed out of the ring. Ryback faces off with the other guys until Vicky Guerrero comes out. She says she knows how Ryback feels and why he's upset. Vicky says Ryback will not be allowed to put his hands on security. She has no choice but to. Ryback interrupts her and he wants CM Punk at TLC. He's not going anywhere until he gets the match. Vicky says she will give him the match but asks him to leave. He tells her to shut up because he wasn't finished. Ryback says he wants Punk at TLC in a tables, ladders, and chairs match. He says there's no amount of security that can stop him from tearing the ring up if he doesn't get what he wants. Vicky says he can have the match under one condition. He must leave the ring so she can get on with the show. Security approaches Ryback now, and he drops a mic. Ryback scares them all out of the ring, and they run off. Ryback gets another pop from the crowd before slapping his hands with the fans at ringside. Coleslaw and Lawler show us footage from last week where Rosa Mendez was sprayed with water by Hornswoggle. Then we see footage from earlier today where Rosa confronted Hornswoggle backstage. He tells her to calm down because it was just a joke. They started arguing when Alberto Del Rio walks up. He ripped into Hornswoggle. Del Rio added that he would be more than happy to give Rosa revenge. Great Khali walked up and told Del Rio to leave his family alone. Del Rio backed off as Hornswoggle and Khali left together. Then we get Alberto Del Rio versus Great Khali. We go to the ring and we get Ricardo Rodriguez beginning the introduction for Alberto Del Rio. And he comes driving a Maserati as they go to commercial. And for the SmackDown taping, he didn't drive a darn thing. The only thing he drove was his mouth. Back from the break, and Khali has Del Rio in the corner. Khali connected with a big chop to the chest, and we see Rosa Mendez watching from backstage. Khali with another big chop in the corner. Khali chopped Del Rio in the back, and he goes down. Del Rio countered and started working on the legs. Del Rio drop kicks Khali's leg out and kicks him in the face. Del Rio unloads, starts working on the arm now. Del Rio continues working on the arm. He gets a 2 count. As we see Hornswoggle at ringside now. Del Rio hits a big kick to the arm. He charges again, but Khali gets his elbow and a big boot up. Khali with a pair of clotheslines and a big overhead chop. Ricardo got on the apron and ducked a chop. Hornswoggle bites Ricardo on his butt, and they run away. Del Rio took advantage and hits the armbar on Khali. Del Rio with a cross arm breaker for the win, as we see Rosa cheering him on from backstage. Vicky Guerrero is backstage with CM Punk and Paul Heyman walking in. Punk is upset about Vicky giving Ryback another shot at TLC. Punk says he has beat Ryback already and asks her if she knows what kind of danger she has put him in. Heyman chimes in and says maybe Vicky isn't thinking with a clear head because of the AJ Lee stuff. Heyman accuses Vicky of playing politics. She says she gave Ryback a title shot because of what happened to him at Survivor Series and in Hell in a Cell. Punk says he has nothing to do with Rollins, Reigns, and Ambrose. Vicky says Punk will face the winner of tonight's Raw Electric Poll, either Kane or Daniel Bryan. Fans can tweet hashtag WWE Bryan or WWE Kane to choose his opponent for tonight. And still to come segment shows Coleslaw's interview with Rollins, Reigns, and Ambrose as we go back to commercial. Back for the break, and we see footage of Rollins, Reigns, and Ambrose attacking Ryback from last week's Raw. Cole and Lawler talk about the attack. Cole leads us into his interview with them, and that was taped earlier today. Coleslaw starts talking, and Ambrose interrupts him first. Ambrose says if Cole has a question to ask them. Just ask it. Coleslaw then asks if they are working directly for CM Punk. Ambrose says nope. Cole asks why are they here? Rollins chimes in and says that question Cole should be asking. Rollins says that they sat down in NXT and saw things clearly. People around here answer to Vicky Guerrero and Booker T. They answer to the board of directors, and the board ultimately answers to the fans. Rollins calls that a popularity contest and says that's wrong. Rollins says that they righting the wrongs and they are a shield from injustice in WWE. Rollins says it's a coincidence that their actions have helped Punk twice so far. Ambrose talks about how it was wrong, how Punk had to defend his title. It says he would have done the same thing if Ryback or Cena was in Punk's shoes. Coleslaw then asks Reigns for comment. He says he wants to say something. He will, and that's it. Ambrose says that they're not Nexus and not the NWO. He says they're about principle and honor, a shield from injustice. Ambrose declares that they are the shield. Reigns interrupts Cole. And Cole says the interview is over because they have said enough. The NXT 3 guys are now called Shield, and they walk off to end the interview. Back to Coleslaw and Dirty King Lawler. Vicky Guerrero has a surprise for AJ and John Cena later on tonight. Still to come, CM Punk versus Kane or Daniel Bryan as they go back to commercial. Back after the commercial, we get a vignette for Fandango. Johnny Curtis. Alicia Fox versus Tamina Snuka was up next. Alicia awaited in the ring as her opponent Tamina Snuka made her way out to new theme music. A side video aired of Tamina talking about AJ Lee not knowing her place. Tamina said that this match is a warning not to mess with Vicky again. Alicia strikes first and takes Tamina into the corner, putting in the boots to her. Tamina turns around and rams Alicia back into the corner. Tamina with a big clothesline and more offense. Tamina with a clothesline to the back of the head. Alicia tries for a small package but has no luck. Tamina with another clothesline. Tamina scoops Alicia for a big Samoan drop. And then goes up top for the Superfly Splash and covers for the win. Coleslaw shows us photos of Vince McMahon, R-Truth, The Miz, Eve Torres, and Layla meeting with the troops over the weekend. And we see John Cena walking backstage as he's headed to the ring as they go to commercial. Back from the break, out comes Cena. We see footage from last week. He says people have been asking him all week long if AJ Lee is a good kisser. Cena goes on, but is interrupted by Peggy Guerrero. Out she comes to the ring. If my daughter was here, she would say, "Excuse me." Vicky says it is the season to give, and she is a gift for Cena and AJ. She has a box handed to her in the ring, and it's matching bathrobes for Cena and AJ. Vicky calls it a token of her appreciation. Vicky says Cena and AJ's whole world will implode and come crashing down on them. She points out how crazy AJ is to Cena. AJ runs down some of AJ's moments this year. AJ's music interrupts, and out she comes. AJ came out and says it's true. She has a lot of issues in the past, but she's trying to learn from her mistakes and become a better person. AJ says now that she's not a general manager, she can date who she wants or do what she wants. AJ says she can do the same. She can do this. She touches Cena on the face and gazes into his eyes. Or she can do this. She smacks Cena on the rear, it looks like, and causes him to drop the mic. Or can she do this? She goes to kiss Cena, and it looks like Vicky interrupts her. And they have more words. AJ says she isn't a lovesick puppy anymore. Dolph Ziggler's music hits, and out he comes to interrupt the action. Comes up the ramp and says he has to interrupt this episode of Jerry Springer. Ziggler says the real story is how he tackled Cena through a bathroom wall last week, and he just took it. Ziggler said that then Cena hit him with a cheap shot on SmackDown and attacked him from behind. Ziggler wonders why Cena resorted to cowardly tactics. Ziggler says it hit him. He knows what he's eating, what's eating Cena up inside. Ziggler says last week when Cena and AJ kissed, AJ was thinking about Ziggler the entire time. Cena says that's funny. Cena gets the crowd hyping and goes to fight Ziggler, but Vicky stops him. Vicky says that they will settle it tonight, Ziggler versus Cena. Still to come tonight, segment again, Punk versus Kane or Daniel Bryan, picked by the WWE Universe. Also tonight, Sheamus versus Antonio Cesaro. Back to commercial. Back from the break, and we see footage of Washington Redskins quarterback RG3 being presented with a WWE title replica by his teammates. And the next up match was Tensai versus Kofi Kingston. Wade Barrett made his way out for commentary. Tensai awaits in the ring. Out next comes the Intercontinental Champion, Kofi Kingston. The bell rings and Tensai strikes first. Kofi leaped on to the top and comes down, but Tensai caught him. Kofi slid out and ducked a clothesline, but gets level with a big elbow. Tensai dropped an elbow and connected with a headbutt. Another elbow drop from Tensai with more big shots. 2 count by Tensai. Tensai kept Kofi grounded to the mat. Tensai beat Kofi down with chops and leg drop the arm. Tensai with an armbar submission now. Kofi followed his way back to his feet and out of the hole. Tensai with a knee to the face. Kofi jumped to the top and comes crashing down with a big right hand. They trade shots and Kofi hits a drop kick. Kofi with a big right hand off the ropes. And Tensai goes down. Kofi hits a boom drop. Tensai blocks Trouble in Paradise. Tensai then blocks the kick in the corner and drops a big elbow on Kofi for 2 count. Tensai goes to the second rope for a big splash, but Kofi moves. Kofi kicked Tensai in the head and springboard in with a big crossbody for the win. After the bell, Barrett grabbed the Intercontinental title and brought it in the ring. He headed to Kofi and walked right back out of the ring into the back. These two will face at the TLC pay-per-view. Kofi looked puzzled as Barrett kept walking. Wow, did we have sportsmanship by Wade Barrett? Kane and Daniel Bryan backstage arguing who will win the Raw Active poll tonight. Surprised they didn't. I will win the poll. I will win the poll. I will win the poll. Who cares who wins the poll? Because it's not poll position. Bryan has data and shows a map of the United States on a TV screen, and everyone has voted for him. Then he shows a map of the world, and the whole world has voted for him. According to Bryan says maybe Kane is winning in hell. Kane grabs him by the throat when Josh Matthews walks up. Matthews has the results of the poll, and the winner is Kane with 58% of the vote. It will be Kane versus Punk tonight. Matthews informs Bryan he will face Rey Mysterio next. This should have been a good match, and I haven't seen none of Raw yet. Bryan rushed off to the ring for the first time ever. Match against Mysterio as we go to commercial. Back from the break, and Rey Mysterio is making his way out. The bell rings and they lock up. Bryan takes Rey down first and stalls now. More back and forth action. Rey dumped Bryan out to the floor and leaped off the apron, but Bryan moved. Bryan came off the apron and takes Rey down with a knee to the jaw. Bryan brought it back in the ring and kept control. Bryan ran over Rey with a clothesline. Bryan threw Rey out to the floor again, but he lands on his feet. Rey came back in as Bryan goes to the floor himself. And we have a stalemate as Raw goes back to commercial. Back for the commercial, and Rey is in control. Rey goes to the top, but Bryan pushes him down. Rey gets turned upside down in the corner, kind of like it seems like Tree of Woe. Bryan kicks him and then drop kicks him in the face. Moore kicks at Bryan while Ray is stuck in the corner. Bryan applies a submission now. Bryan goes on and sends Ray flying out to the floor. Bryan throws Ray into the ring post and brings him back into the ring. Bryan gets a 2 count. Bryan with another submission hold. Ray fought out, but Bryan knocked him back to the mat. Bryan takes Ray to the top for a superplex, but Ray fought him off and knocked him to the mat. Ray with a seated senton and head scissors takedown. Ray runs into a kick, but rolls through a pin attempt and kicks Bryan in the head for a 2 count. Ray drop kicked Bryan into the position for the 619, but Bryan avoided it. Bryan goes for the Borgasm lock, and Ray makes it to the ropes and breaks the hold. Bryan with more kicks and another submission attempt. Ray fought it out and catapults Bryan into the position for the 619. And Ray does get the 619 around the ring post and goes to the top for the big splash. Ray covers for the win. Alberto Del Rio and Ricardo Rodriguez are backstage when Rosa Mendez walks up. She thanks Del Rio for beating Khali earlier. Del Rio tells her whatever she needs, winks at her, and walks off. Still to come, Sheamus versus Cesaro later on tonight. So I guess Rosa has totally left Primo and Epico. Josh Matthews is backstage with Dolph Ziggler. Matthews asked about his match with John Cena tonight. Ziggler says he can't wait to see the look on AJ's face when he beats up her boyfriend tonight. Back to commercial. Coleslaw and the King show us footage of AJ Lee storming into the locker room from last week and confront Dolph Ziggler, leading to Cena and Ziggler brawling. Another recap video with what happened on SmackDown between the two. And we get Dolph Ziggler versus John Cena up next. We go to the ring and out comes Ziggler first. John Cena was out next, of course. The bell rang and they locked up. They run the ropes and Cena arm drags Ziggler and took him to the mat. They break and lock up again. Cena applied a headlock and they run the ropes again. Cena countered and hit a hip toss and a head takedown. Ziggler turns it around and hits a jawbreaker as they go to commercial. Back from the break. And Cena is upside down. Is down outside the ring during the break. Ziggler whipped him into the steel steps. Ziggler brought it back in the ring and unloads on Cena with right hands. Ziggler shows off and does some sit-ups. Cena scrambles and covers off for 2. Ziggler broke up the pin and clothesline Cena. Ziggler dropped a bunch of elbows and shows off some more before missing the final elbow. Cena comes back with a shoulder and the back drop. Dolph blocked the 5-knuckle shuffle and hits a huge flying DDT for a 2 count. And they go back and forth for a few moments. Ziggler applied a sleeper hold. Ziggler keeps it locked in. Cena goes down to one knee. Cena fights up and applies the STF. Ziggler broke it and hits a big drop kick. Ziggler climbs to the top and hits a crossbody, but Cena rolls through and goes for the attitude adjustment. But Ziggler counters and drops Cena for a close 2 count. They trade right hands and kicks now. Ziggler rolls Cena up for 2 and Cena ducks the clothesline and slams Ziggler. Cena goes for the 5-knuckle shuffle, but his knee gives out and he goes down. Cena goes to the floor and ringside doctors check on him, playing off the injury from last week. Ziggler takes the cover off of the turnbuckle, and as the referee isn't looking, AJ runs down and stops him. They argue when Vicky comes down. She brings AJ off the apron, and they have words. Referee tries to get Vicky to leave and has his back turned. Dolph swings the briefcase at Cena, but he ducks and nails the attitude adjustment for the win. After the match, and after the bell rings, Cena hits the turnbuckle to celebrate, and AJ enters the ring. Cena turns around to AJ smiling at him. They meet in the middle of the ring, and Cena puts his hands out. She takes it, but brings him in for a big kiss. They make out again, and we go to replays. Cena and AJ raise their hands and bow to the fans before leaving together. Still to come tonight's segment again. Punk versus Kane. We'll see Sheamus walking backstage. Back to commercial. So Sheamus versus Antonio Cesaro is up next. Back from the break. Sheamus was out first. U.S. champion Antonio Cesaro was out next for his non-title match. The bell rang and they locked up. Cesaro took Sheamus down first and they lock up again. Sheamus with a headlock and a big shoulder. Sheamus took Cesaro to the mat with a headlock. Back and forth action now. Sheamus comes out of the corner and runs over Cesaro. Sheamus with a suplex and a 1 count. They trade shots and Sheamus goes to the apron. He drops Cesaro back over the top rope and comes back in. But Cesaro kicks him into the floor. Sheamus pulls Cesaro out to the floor and throws him into the fan barrier. Sheamus gets dropped over the steel steps as we go to commercial. Back from the break. Out came Sheamus. I missed it. Okay, back from the break. Cesaro was in control. They got up and traded shots. Sheamus with a pair of clotheslines. Sheamus rammed Cesaro back in the corner. Cesaro came back with a big clothesline for a 2 count. And Cesaro hits a big gut wrench slam for another pin attempt. Sheamus goes on and hits the forearm shots from the apron. Sheamus launches himself in with a big shoulder and then Irish curse backbreaker for a 2 count. More back and forth action. Cesaro slid out of a white noise and Sheamus scoop slams him for a 2. More back and forth for a moment or two. Cesaro scoops Sheamus high and drops him with a big slam for 2 of his own. Sheamus ends up on top. He comes down with a battering ram, but Cesaro stops him in midair with a huge uppercut. Cesaro goes for the neutralizer, but Sheamus countered. Sheamus barely hits his brogue kick and sends Cesaro to the floor. Referee begins the count. Cesaro out as Big Show comes out to the ramp with a chair. Cesaro is counted out. So Sheamus wins by count out. Big Show turns around and heads to the back from the ramp, but Sheamus grabs a mic. Sheamus dares Show to use that chair he's holding. Sheamus wants to retire Big Show at TLC. Sheamus continues, and Show gets pissed. Show destroys this steel chair and walks off to the back as Sheamus looks on. And they showed this segment on SmackDown as well on the Titantron for the SmackDown taping. Still to come, Punk versus Kane. Back to commercial. Then we get Damian Sandow versus Zack Ryder. Again, almost the same match on SmackDown taping. Back for the break, and out comes Damian Sandow with a microphone. Sandow cuts a promo as he heads to the ring. His opponent is Zack Ryder. And they go back and forth to start the match. Sandow worked over Ryder on the apron and rushes back in for a 2 count. Sandow stomps away on Ryder's ribs. Then covers for another 2 count. Sandow with a headlock now. Sandow kept control and drops the elbow of disdain for another pin attempt. More offense from Sandow. Ryder fought back with knees to the jaw and a missile drop kick for the top. Ryder with a big right hand in the corner. He goes for the broski boot, but Sandow rolls to the floor. Ryder decked him anyway, then brings him back into the ring. Ryder goes to the top, but Sandow knocks him off. Sandow with a big neck breaker for the win. Matthews is backstage with Paul Heyman for comments. Heyman brings up Punk passing Randy Savage on the all-time WWE champion list. Back to commercial. Back for the break, and for the second time tonight, they show Michael Cole's interview with Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. Next up, we got Kane versus CM Punk. We go straight to the ring. Out comes one half the tag team champions, Kane. Out next comes CM Punk, the champion, with Paul Heyman. Kane takes Punk to the corner, but Punk turned it around and chopped him. Kane just gets up, upset, and then they meet in the middle of the ring. Punk with kicks and forearm shots. Punk took it to the back, takes it back to the corner. Kane turned it around. Kane beat Punk down. Kane continued to assault in the corner, and Heyman looks on. Punk kicked Kane in the face and fires back with chops and forearm shots. Kane counters a move and drops Punk over the top rope. Kane clotheslined him out to the floor as we go to commercial. Back for the break, and Punk is in control, working on Kane's leg. Kane ends up on the floor, and Punk suicide dives through the ropes and takes him out. Punk brings him back in the ring and stops on Kane in the corner. Punk with a high knee in the corner. He hits a second knee in the corner and goes for the third, but Kane runs over him with a big right hand. Kane takes Punk back to the corner and works him over. Kane with a side slam and a 2 count. Kane got to the top and comes crashing down with a right hand as the crowd pops. Heck, it could have been just a right-handed clothesline. Very similar to his win versus one of his opponents on SmackDown taping. Kane called for the chokeslam, but Punk ducked it and hits a swinging neckbreaker for 2 count. Kane turns it around and hits a chokeslam. He goes for the pin attempt, but Heyman puts Punk's foot on the bottom rope. Kane goes for the tombstone pile driver on Heyman. Pile driver as Heyman screams at ringside. Punk slides out as Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose appear in the crowd. Punk nails the GTS for the win, surprise out of nowhere. So Punk wins. After the match, Shield make their way to ringside. Now as Punk looks on from the ring, they surround the ring and enter as Kane gets to his feet. Punk backs into the corner. Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns attack Kane and beat him down as Punk looks on and sneaks out of the ring. Daniel Bryan runs down to save his partner, but the Shield beat him down also. They kick Bryan out of the ring and they go back to Kane. Ryback's music hits and out he comes to a big pop. Punk leaps over the barrier and runs through the crowd. Ryback hits the ring, but the Shield beat on him. He fights them off and unloads. Ryback powerbombs Rollins and powerbombs Rollins and hits the big clothesline on Ambrose and Reigns. Punk attacks Ryback from behind, but Ryback fights him off. Ryback goes for to powerbomb Punk, but Reigns spears him. The Shield go back beating on Ryback. And they do the triple powerbomb as Punk leaves the ring and looks on. Rollins, Reigns, and Ambrose stand over Ryback and look at Punk. Punk looks to be entering the ring as we go to replays. The Shield leave through the crowd as Punk's music hits, and he poses over Ryback with the WWE title as Raw goes off the air. And that concludes my video for Raw and Superstars tapings for this week. Impact is up next. Thanks for viewing. Peace out.